Yes, so good morning from Canada and good afternoon, hello wherever you are. So today, what we're planning on sharing with you is really just a high-level presentation of not only what Ecomos Canada is doing, but primarily what we are observing in Canada in terms of work between that connects heritage and sustainability. Claudine, can you say just 2 words about yourself?
Yes, hello everyone. I'm a professor at the School of Architecture at the University of Montreal in Canada. I teach heritage conservation. I am a member of Ecomos Canada and of this working group, a newly appointed member, I should say. And I'm also part of the SIF, International Scientific Committee for Ecomos, which is the Scientific Committee on Education and Training. And I do believe that I'm also wearing that SIF hat for the SDG working group. Thank you.
Merci, Claudine. Sampurna, can you say a few words about yourself?
Of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Sampurna, and I also joined the SDG working group about 2 months ago, so very recently. I have a Bachelor of Arts in History and Theory of Architecture and a Master of Sciences in Rural Planning and Development and International Development. So my work experiences and interests really lie in rural and small community heritage. And currently I work at the Rural Ontario Institute as a data analyst.
Thank you very much. Oh, and for myself, I should say that, well, I'm here as someone who's professionally working in SDGs and heritage. I am also a member of the Vice President of ATCOM and President of Ecomos Canada. So with those hats, because we're all multiply hatted, this is a great privilege for me to listen to these conversations and convey, have that dialogue happening between the different groups. So I appreciate that. So in terms of the SDG work in Canada, that will be a quick overview of what we've heard, because in fact, there are many groups that are working on SDG matters. Traditionally, the Canadian delegations to these international meetings have looked at multiple stakeholders. Heritage has not always been at the table. We've consistently reached out to officials, but our success rate has been relatively modest. That being said, we do know that it is part of policy dialogue at different levels. Federally, we have a strategy and a legislation that imposes sustainability objectives for all federal departments, government departments. It was recently updated 3 years ago, that strategy. We've presented the case of heritage, and we've made sure to recall Canada's commitments on the international scene. But to date, these policies still generally do not incorporate heritage matters. So it is quite critical for our work, together with other national organizations such as the National Trust for Canada, to advocate for that lens to become a primary policy lens, to look at sustainable development as incorporating heritage. La prochaine. Merci. Sorry, I need those slides because it's early and I can't remember what we were planning. Thank you. So in terms of cultural heritage, also, to give an impression of Canada's heritage, we wanted to make sure that there's an understanding of the complexity. Yes, we are a youngish country, but human interaction with this landscape has occurred for thousands of years and has also occurred through various cultural lenses. So our country is one of great complexity when it comes to heritage values that stem from natural dimensions, cultural dimensions, indigenous, non-indigenous, cultural communities that are recent immigrants, older, settled communities. So there's quite a mix, and it is that mix that creates that complexity. It is also that mix that leads to the argument that a sustainable development approach is an appropriate one to deal with that complexity. Much of the heritage sector has supported various aspects of the SDGs. They're doing it indirectly, and what we mean by that is that There is a concern about economic matters. There's an increasing concern about inclusion, especially access to housing. But we, in order to start a path of making an impact in our work together with the rest of the heritage sector, we decided to focus on 4 major themes that capture these 5 goals. So, yeah, so we don't have the 4 themes. Can you remind me what those themes were, Claudine, if you, oh, those will be the case studies, okay. So just before the previous slide, thank you very much. ICOMOS Canada and the SDGs. So what we've tried to do since we started initiating our work is first to provide leadership, because in fact there is no single organization that deals with sustainability and heritage. So we've addressed this by asserting our relationship to these United Nations goals. What concretely that means in our work is that we've internalized this question of SDGs. So we don't have a specific committee yet. We're forming that, but for a couple of years already, we've internalized the discourse of SDGs in the public statements that we make, in the support that we provide to community groups and so on. So that's that we found is a really effective way of demonstrating how to have an impact. It's to internalize that language. So we are also creating the conditions to connect and promote that knowledge transfer between different groups that deal with certain aspects of heritage and certain aspects of sustainability. Some of them never cross paths, but we are taking this role of promoting that cross-pollination between those different paths. And with the final objective of connecting this to all aspects of life. So we're going to present to you 4 case studies, and those case studies are very high level, but they're connected to the 4 themes that I'm forgetting right now, but you will see them through those case studies. And I will ask Claudine to say a few words about the first case study on accessibility.
Yes, thank you, Christophe. A few words about accessibility, which is something that we have very close to our heart, because as we know, access to heritage is not currently universal. Built cultural and systemic barriers prevent many people, and especially those with disabilities, from engaging with heritage. The Canadian province of Ontario, where Ottawa is located, has been reflecting upon this issue for some time through a variety of organizations, such as the Ontario Historical Society, which has launched an accessible heritage toolkit over a decade ago, and I can share that link afterwards with you if you're interested. So more recently, in October 2021, the Ontario Business Improvement Area Association held a one-day heritage and accessibility conference in order to foster discussion on the issues of heritage accessibility in the province of Ontario. I participated in a discussion panel about training opportunities for the next generation. The purpose of this panel was to explore how this issue is currently being integrated in university curricula, in architecture curricula, and in heritage conservation programs, and how it could be reinforced. So it's the beginning of a discussion, but it clearly shows that the heritage sector and ICOMOS Canada is engaging in discussions around improving the accessibility of heritage, both built and intangible, by engaging with stakeholders from the business community, which traditionally have not always been present in heritage discussions in Canada.
So the second one is about inclusion, and we're going to put a particular spotlight on a recent initiative by ICOMOS Canada launched last year with the support of the department responsible for employment and Parks Canada, which is the agency responsible for national historic sites. So no, that's the previous slide, case study 2, please. So we launched a program called Youth in Heritage, and the intent of this program is to foster a relationship between the next generation of interested youth with the current generation of practitioners. So a couple of distinctive elements about this program. The first one is that we are targeting anyone under 30. So this is not targeting specifically students. It's not specifically targeting emerging professionals. It's targeting anyone under 30 who may be interested or may not even know they might be interested in heritage. The second element is that this is targeting a broad range of types of activities related to heritage. For example, we're connecting woodworkers with youth 16-year-olds who just want to learn how to do something with their hands and are discovering the value of traditional techniques of woodworking. But we're also encouraging young graduates to enter the policy world. So we are connecting municipalities, cities, with recent graduates and offering them the opportunity to help develop policy for these cities. So it's quite a breadth of types of activities, and that really has opened up the eyes of many of our partners as to the breadth of impact that supporting training in heritage can have. And the last particular element is that we also put a particular focus on underrepresented groups. So we have a general pattern of individuals invested in heritage who are generally have university degrees and come from certain groups and demographic groups. In this instance, we are specifically focusing on Indigenous, underrepresented groups, racialized and racialized groups, and individuals from multicultural communities. And this is really to address the issue of representation, not only of in the workforce, but eventually it has an impact on how we see heritage and how we define heritage. So this is a program that is at the pilot stage. We are going to be closing soon our first batch of 100 students, 100 youth from across the country, and we're going to have some interesting stories to share on that. Our third case study is on urban resilience, and I'll say a few words about that as I'm professionally involved in some of the work here, but the main message here is that 80% of Canada's population is ending up is living in cities. And one of the biggest challenges of the cities, especially these days, addressing the pandemic, is how to revitalize the downtowns, and these downtown cores are typically historic cores. So the issue of addressing economic tools, addressing social issues, addressing the physical rehabilitation of these spaces is now top of mind. Typically, cities will revert to economic tools as tools to invest and attract investment. This, we know, can have a negative impact on heritage because it may lead to the disappearance of infrastructure and spaces that are significant. So we've been working with various cities and to consider how we can address these concerns of revitalization through the lens of sustainability, which incorporates cultural heritage. So that means a range of approaches that consider understanding the fabric and the significance of that space for the different communities that currently interact, but it's also looking for the future opportunities stemming from understanding who can be connected. How can these spaces serve a function in new economies, for example? How can it serve a function in addressing social needs like housing? So this is still in its infancy, but we've had cities like Calgary that commission policies that look at the economic and social and environmental impact of investments in the historic core with a heritage lens. Cities like Winnipeg, who've commissioned through the business sector, actually, who've commissioned an analysis of the opportunities that would stem from certain types of reinvestment in the heritage fabric. So this is something that will be quite a stimulating environment to discuss. And the last case study, Sampoorna, please.
Yes, so on the flip side of the previous case study, we're considering rural communities as well. The Federal Census Agency currently estimates that about 18% of the population of Canada lives in rural areas, which composes the vast majority of the landscape of Canada. It's important to note that here Canada's definition of rural may have a lower threshold than some other countries. Rural communities are considered to be populations of less than 1,000, living outside of commuting zones of centers with populations of 10,000 or more. So this definition is flexible, of course, especially when considering contexts of small communities such as towns, hamlets, and villages, Indigenous communities, and remote regions. So since around the 1850s, Canada has become steadily and more urbanized. Now, rural regions are facing challenges of outmigration, lack of services, degrading infrastructure, while rapid modernization and development is becoming more commonplace. And in this process, communities are losing their cultural and natural heritage, including monuments, gathering places, natural landscapes, and so on. And several initiatives have emerged in response to these challenges. And one such example is Heritage Newfoundland and Labrador, which was launched in October 2021 in partnership with the Arts and Crafts Council of Newfoundland and Labrador. And this provides a list of traditional crafts at risk of disappearing in the province, such as wooden boat building, birch broom making, and Indigenous beadwork. So also in recognition of the challenges that rural communities face, both in youth retention and funding training, the Mentor Apprentice program was also launched, which provides funding up to $10,000 to go towards enabling an apprenticeship by a mentor. And this heavily emphasizes hands-on training and requires apprentices to demonstrate clear commitment to learning these skills in order to ensure their survival. And other initiatives across Canada which aim to support heritage conservation and cultural resilience in rural areas include the Culture of Small program by ERA Architects, which connects small community businesses rooted in culture together. The Pop Silos and Barn Quilts projects, which are also found in some areas of the United States, which are art projects which generate heritage tourism, and the Tale of a Town traveling podcast, which interviews people in small towns to share their stories and invoke a sense of place for podcast listeners.
Thank you, Sampoorna. So this quick overview was meant to highlight the fact that when it comes to SDGs and heritage in Canada, there is quite a bit of complexity because of the values, because of the different levels of government. So while I've made some comments on the federal government, at the provincial level, there is a lot more diverse leadership that's emerged. There's a mention in the chat box about the Quebec Government Sustainable Development Act. It stands out as being unique, in fact, in the country. That being said, the guidance required to understand that relationship between heritage and sustainability is a necessity. We are working to spell out that guidance, and we are working in partnership with non-traditional heritage groups in order to have a deeper impact. These 4 themes are going to guide our work for the foreseeable future. And we have found that these 4 themes generally cover the range of SDGs in an effective way, so that we can carry that message of true impact through a sustainable lens. Are there any last words, Claudine or Sampoorna, that you'd like to add?
No, I'm good. Thanks.
Yeah. Merci. C'est bon. Thank you, Gabe, and thank you everyone for giving us the opportunity to say a few words today.
Thanks, Christophe. That was a good presentation. I was thinking that you had a very good idea that of crafting the SDGs as 4 themes. Is like you have now a priority for Ecomos Canada. So I just wanted to ask, maybe if anyone wants to ask some questions, please raise your hand. But I have a question. So how did you craft those messages? How can you tell us your process of putting that together?
Well, I mean, we are still a small community of practitioners, so we discuss this with our board, and we've collected some perspectives over the years, because much of our discussion in our general assemblies has touched elements of the SDGs. So we've been talking about these things without calling them SDGs necessarily, and this is where we're finding this opportunity. By using that label SDGs, we are able to bring together these themes. That's the first thing. The second thing is that ICOMOS Canada already had 4 thematic priorities to guide its general work. And these 4 thematic priorities on Indigenous matters, cultural landscapes, cultural diversity, and climate change resonate also very well with our intent to implement the SDGs. In this instance, what we're planning on doing is to start creating these opportunities to collect data, to present observations, and eventually that will lead us to guidance under these 4 big themes. Claudine, Sampoorna, do you remember anything else in terms of how we crafted these things?
Opportunity to engage with people who are perhaps on the outer realms of the heritage field. And I think these themes and opportunities that we have had so far, and that we're willing to pursue, are doorways to be able to engage with people and just have conversations to put the idea of heritage. I think we're at that stage.
Great, Claudine. That is really the starting point of new ideas, is to brainstorm and create new pathways, right? I want to ask colleagues if there are any other questions or comments, and I really think it was an amazing presentation, and it's quite straight to the point, but very clear and good. Thank you. Any thoughts for the moment? None so far. So I just want to say thank you again to ICOMOS Canada. Again, it was quite a good presentation.